Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the Rockman Power Hour, a podcast where we talk to the most interesting people in the world of pop culture. And we are here this week talking about a new film that's coming out called Sweetwater, which I think you're going to find very, very interesting and which touches on a story that is very, very significant if you are a fan of basketball, if you're a fan of civil rights, and if you're a fan of just feel-good stories. I think you're going to really, really enjoy this. But before we go too far, let's welcome my co-host, Ryan Stick. Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm in a feel-good mood just based on watching this film.
Did you like the movie?
Oh, absolutely. And what's something funny about me, Rockman? I hate sports. Mm-hmm. I don't enjoy watching them, but I do like dabbling in them. With some friends.
Yeah.
But I also love, and I mean love, sports films.
Yeah,
love
me too.
them.
Me too.
Tell me to watch them on TV. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But if watch it professionally, no. Watch a movie about it. Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know. Remember the Titans, the Mighty Ducks, Rudy, The Longest Yard. There's so many of. There's one.
The Sandlot.
Oh, my
amazing.
God.
And that's not even about. They barely play the game in it. It's mostly about the friendship that the game gravitates towards and stuff. It's incredible.
There's an old school one with Nick Nolte. I don't know if maybe you haven't seen it, or maybe you have seen it. It's called North Dallas 40.
No, but I'll check it out now.
I can lend it to you. You really, really like it. Actually, Imprint Films put it out, I don't know, maybe a year ago, not even a year ago, like the last 6 months. But there's nothing quite like a feel-good sports film or a documentary. Like, I love documentaries on sports teams. But I'm like you. Like, I've played sports. Like, I played football when I was younger. I have an appreciation for sports. I'll go see a sporting event, but it's not the kind of thing, with the exception of NFL playoffs and, of course, combat sports, which you come from such an incredible pedigree of combat sports, and you fucking have no interest in it, which is a crime. But
haven't you ever seen the movie where it's like, here's the son that like didn't follow in the father's footsteps, and and then the father gets murdered, and it's like, it's up to you to avenge his death, and I have yet of a need of a montage in my life, but I'm assuming that'll step up to the plate when that happens.
Well, please do not will into existence the murder of Phil.
No, please don't kill my dad, because I am not good at montages, and I'll miss him some.
So just to give people a bit of a I don't know, a bit of context. We're talking about Ryan's dad is an old school martial artist. Your dad I think your dad was responsible for bringing Brazilian jiu-jitsu to Canada.
He was part of it. Yeah. Like, and capoeira. And like, he was like one of those guys where, in martial arts, he was, before the term was coined, mixed martial arts.
Right.
It was just kind of like he was very curious, and one system wasn't enough, because systems are fascinating, and he wanted to learn more. Despite the fact that even one of his first teachers kind of kicked him out of his class because he wanted to learn other
disciplines.
Say instruments. I'm like, that's my deal. I'm trying to imagine, like, you're a bass player and that's it. You want to touch those drums? Get out of my freaking school.
But so your dad wanted to mix disciplines.
Yeah, so he's a member of the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame, and he's a full instructor under Dan Inosanto, who is one of the 3 certified black belts under Bruce Lee, and that's just one of his stuff. But anyway, basketball.
Yes. So back to basketball. So Ryan and I love a feel good sports film, and this one really, really is that. The story is the movie's called Sweetwater, and before we go too far, hey, wait a minute, let's back up.
Speaking of sweet, how about some flavor?
Well, it's funny you say sweet, because I have got with me today pineapple habanero from Heartbeat Hot Sauce, and we would like to thank Heartbeat Hot Sauce for being on this journey with us. We have renewed with them for another season. We absolutely love these guys. A great small batch fermenter company of hot sauce out of Thunder Bay, Ontario, and they're just great. And they're making so many moves in so many different areas of the world. It's so exciting to be a part of the team with them, because not only are they've had a foothold in mixed martial arts for a while, but now they're getting into motorsports, and now they're getting into motocross, and the world's waking up to this secret that we've known about for a while. So Heartbeat Hot Sauce, definitely check them out. What do you got? What are you holding up?
Oh, I got a bunch. I got the Ryan Ellis race car one.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, because I live in the fast lane, see, and I have dill pickle, which is arguably the most popular flavor they have ever made amongst my homies.
Well, yes, that one and the blueberry habanero, those two are like they go so fast in my house. They're like they're gone. And I just finished my last
faster than the Ryan Ellis race car one.
Faster than me in bed.
Oh boy!
But listen, I think people need to try Heartbeat hot sauce if you haven't tried it yet. Like we're mentioning all these different great flavors. And what's great about it is on the back of the bottle you've got your hot meter, so you can go from like extra hot to like mild, and they're just phenomenal hot sauce. And if you use our promo code Rockman20 right below, you will get 20% off your entire order. So go check out Heartbeat hot sauce, a great company that we love to work with here at the Rockman Power Hour. And they are, like we say, the heartbeat of the Rockman Power Hour. And yes, thanks again to our friends over at Studio House Designs, always trying to make us look fresh, and we love their stuff as well. So go check them out at studiohousedesigns.com. Okay.
Let's get a little look at your chest there, Rockman. Words I don't say very often.
Yeah, right.
This is... Hey, buddy.
So this is the Pauly Shore stack. We'll move that out of the way.
Nice. Cool, right? You know what? That's what I love about this company. Like the dedication that someone would make a shirt of a Pauly Shore stack.
I know.
I have a friend who's obsessed with Pauly Shore, and the first thing I did when I saw that was send her the image. OMG,
right?
Like, all that. Yeah.
Well, that's it. And he's got the designer Cody. Has this thing where he takes old VHS films, photographs them, and makes like a stack shirt, and it's just really, really unique. So
he should do the same thing with Slaves on Dope CDs.
That would be a thin stack, but it would be it'd be weird, thin but long. Okay, so Sweetwater. Let's get on to that one. New film is called Sweetwater. It is about Nathaniel Sweetwater Clifton, who was actually a star in the Harlem Globetrotters for years. And he ended up becoming the guy who changed the game of basketball by becoming the first African-American player to sign a contract in the NBA. And this was in 1950. Now, when you think of the NBA, Ryan, and you think that at one point, the National Basketball Association, the NBA, did not allow people of color to play in the league. Can you imagine that today? Like, it makes no
Jason, as someone who doesn't watch professional sports, at first I was like, white guys play basketball?
Thank you.
That's my thing. I'm like, when I think of basketball, I think of Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. The list
goes on. Magic Johnson, Julius Irving, Daryl Dawkins. I mean, and then there's always and then there's always like Larry Bird.
And there's some variant of the universe where Sweetwater doesn't happen and this doesn't go through.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that crazy how history does change? And you look at these moments, this monumental moments that fundamentally change the world. Mm-hmm. And I, as a person, feel kind of crappy that I didn't know this guy was a thing.
Yeah.
I always assumed that things were, I know change happens at some point, but I didn't know when.
Yeah.
And for such a monumental difference, I feel a little guilty about not knowing this gentleman's name till now.
Well, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. The stories, obviously it's such an important one on so many levels, like I mentioned before. But what I love about this is that we got to talk to the director, Dr. Martin Guigui, and just his obsession with this story when he found out about it and how long it took to make the film. If I'm not mistaken, he said it was almost 20 years. So
wow.
Just the journey of having this script idea and then seeing it come to fruition and cross the finish line is amazing. So we got a chance to talk to Martin, and we also got a chance to talk to Cary Elwes. And, so Cary Elwes plays the owner of the New York Knickerbockers.
Okay, sorry. Just a hot take. Did not know that's what the Knicks was short for.
Yeah. Well, that's what they used to be called.
I don't think it would be quite the franchise it is today in the equivalent of cool.
Yeah, it's a dated term, so I think they shortened it. But so Cary Elwes plays Ned Irish, who is the owner of the team. It's an all-star studded cast. Eric Roberts is in it. Jeremy Piven is in it as well. And of course, Everett Osborne, who plays Sweetwater himself. It's just a great movie. I really enjoyed it. It's coming out on April 14th. So it's something I suggest people go check out. But without any further ado, why don't we go right into our interview with the director right now of Sweetwater. It's really nice to chat with you. I love learning new things, and I didn't know anything about this movie besides that it had to do with basketball. It had a lot of actors that I enjoyed. But then as I started watching it, I realized it touched on so many things that I loved. Because I mean, I've been seeing the Globetrotters ever since I'm a kid. My dad used to take me to the Globetrotters in Montreal. They would come every year. I continued the tradition with my kids. I actually ended up interviewing a couple of Globetrotters over the years. So to know that this story was rooted in the Trotters was amazing to find out. And then obviously everything else that the story begins to tell, and the historical significance. What brings you to a project like this? Is it like me? Is it the passion of things that you grew up with? Or I mean, how does this fall on your lap, or how do you create this?
Oh, we share so much DNA. That's really interesting. And I spent some years in a small town called Middlebury, Vermont. We used to come up to Montreal all the time to actually be able to enjoy, global entertainment.
Right.
The Globetrotters sont magnifiques. And and I do the same with my kids too. The very similar DNA we have. And not unlike yourself, have always gravitated. I think a lot of moviegoers, it's an added spice, or potentially what we really look for the most subconsciously in arts and entertainment is a story that educates as well as entertains. One that we haven't. I love walking out of a theater or seeing a movie, whether I watch at home or wherever I am, and I go like, I didn't know that happened. Sure. How come I didn't know that story? And I think that's a part of a responsibility as a storyteller, to share, seek out and share. And for me, that's always been my touchstone. I always get turned on by original stories or stories that are potentially under the radar. Mm-hmm. This one, because of Jason, because of my love for the game of basketball, starting out as a kid and continuing on now. My love for history. I was always an information buff. I was I was a paper boy as a kid.
Same.
And wow. And I loved having the stats before any of my friends in school did. I would know every game, whether it was baseball, basketball, the hockey, whatever it was. I could tell them, no, blah, 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 blah. I got 14 assists or whatever it is. And so when I bumped into the story, I became intrigued, and my life slowed down for a minute. And I realized that this story, there's something about it that I identify with so deeply in my DNA. I felt purpose, and I dedicated time to it unconditionally, and according to people around me, potentially irrationally. Yet I just felt that I needed to know what happened. I wanted to understand, because I did find back in the 90s and in this NBA encyclopedia and at the Hall of Fame, it said that Earl Lloyd, Chuck Cooper, and Sweetwater Clifton were the first.
Right.
But it didn't tell you what happened. How did Earl Lloyd become the first to play, Sweetwater the first, and so on and so forth, as the story tells, and I don't want to give it away. And it was so fascinating. And the characters around it. Every time I found something, Jason, every time I interviewed somebody, whether it was Wilt Chamberlain or Red Auerbach or Pete Hamill or family members, the Vanderways, the Sapersteins, Sweetwater's family, the Lapchicks, no matter who I interviewed, and I got more information, I realized I was onto something. I thought, okay, this could be a book, maybe it's a documentary, but it needs to be told. And I was doing it I selfishly for myself first.
Right.
I really wanted to know. And then I moved to LA and became a feature film director at one point or another. I transitioned from documentary to filmmaking, always been making music. And from time to time, I would tell, the story or the anecdote, whether I'm having lunch with somebody or an executive or somebody I thought, okay, maybe this person would want to help and get involved. And they were always intrigued by it. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting. Anyway, to answer the long and short of it, maybe I'm answering several questions for you, was that it took this long, I think, because there was so much information about it that had not been documented.
Yeah.
And I identified, sorry to interrupt, and I identified with it for all the right reasons, meaning that, wow, here's a piece of entertainment that also educates and could have positive impact.
So this is obviously a project that and this, this is the story is as old as the hills. This is a project a passion project of yours that you had for years.
Yeah, it started in April of 95.
Wow. So to finally see it come to light and, to be talking, a guy like me who just saw the movie, it's got to be satisfying for you. No matter what happens with it, it's just got to be satisfying that it crossed the finish line and that people are seeing it and hearing the story.
Brings joy beyond words to my heart that I can't even describe. And it also has solidified my choices in life that have to do with being a spiritual individual. I'm a believer, and also felt that a connective tissue to a spirituality that I had never felt before. You could call it guardian angels. You could call it true purpose, which is mentioned in the movie. There's a certain sense of relief, but it's not relief. It's exhilaration. It's, my passion for life and for what I do is now on steroids, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, sure. I think I can relate. I think I know what language you're talking to, but I don't want to say anything on the interview. I've had a renewed passion for life over the last 30 years. I made some changes when I was 21 and my life totally went a different way.
I'm so happy to hear that, man. We share that. That's awesome.
But what's great about this story is, and again, it's so hard to talk about this without giving anything away. I think at one point, I'm going to be talking with my podcast partner about this, and we're going to have to do a spoiler episode because there's so much to discuss.
Oh, that's great. Let's do it.
But there's the way this opens with the guy getting in the hack, and hey, turn that up and let's hear. And then the story's being told. And that this story is being told in this taxi, but we're seeing it. It's just, and just the way everything is just wrapped up in a nice bow and presented is it's just really, really, it's great storytelling. But what I found the most fascinating with this film was the performances. You've got some great actors in this movie. I mean, let's not mince words. I mean, depending on where you're talking, if you're talking about classics, you've got a guy who's involved with some classics. You've got a guy who's a modern, Piven's a beast. Guys in the 30s. I mean, if they just know him from Entourage, he's a beast. And then you got a guy like Cary, who from the nerd world, Princess Bride and Robin Hood Men in Tights, like so just having this whole cast together committed to this. And no one seems like they're phoning it in. They really, really seem like they're really, really circling the main character. And just supporting him. And it just seems like everybody's really enjoying themselves. So when you're filming this and you see everybody's committed like this, it must help to tell the story in a more convincing way.
Well, amen to all of that. By the way, the cab is a true story. It was redacted to me by a reporter who actually experienced that. And the blessing also was to have these hypersensitive creators, actors who are gifted, but also have a pedigree and a hypersensibility to the fragility of this story. Mm-hmm. Everett Osborne, who plays Sweetwater Clifton and is a newcomer and is brilliant.
He really is.
And was going to have a long career after this. I'm sure he'll change his number, and I'll have to do a lot of research to find it. He really, and I think all the actors will attest to this, he brought his game, so to speak. He really elevated. I remember the first scene that we shot with him. Jeremy Piven turned to me and he said, okay, I got to bring my A game too.
Yeah, sure.
And it's similar with Pollak, similar with Dreyfuss. And there was a camaraderie. There was an exchange of creativity. Stylistically, as director, I utilize the screenplay simply as a map, and I know that everybody's going to bring their life experience to it, and that was the methodological approach to this. That was our algorithm, and it was both intense, emotional. There were tears on set, there were laughter on set, and potentially in the areas that exist in the film. And what the greatest fulfillments for me in this journey has been that my kids, who are creators themselves, had they grown up in Vermont, they would probably be tapping maple syrup, but they've grown up in LA, and so they love the art of creativity and the impact that it had on them to understand an idea, harvesting, nurturing, and then most importantly, manifesting. How it takes a community to do that was probably the greatest fulfillment for me, other than knowing that this story will impact generations to come in a positive way. Incidentally, your kids are blessed that you're their dad.
I really, really appreciate you taking the time to give me the wrap up. But thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to people seeing this, and good job. It was really, really a great, great film.
Oh, Jason, thank you, man. I had so much fun just hanging, chatting here. I feel like we've known each other a few hundred years.
I'll find you.
All right, right on, brother.
Thanks, man.
Seems like a real passionate fellow and really, really genuinely nice person. And it's nice to know that this journey is so fulfilling to him, and that, this long-form game of making this film was worth it.
Yeah, and, again, like we were saying at the beginning of this, there's something about a feel-good story that just makes you feel good. And it's when he's talking about the reason why people wanted to be attached to this project is because people didn't know this story. And when people found out the story, they're like, well, I want to I want to be a part of this. Like, imagine stories like this, like a story that monumental, that important, that kind of gets thrown away and lost in history, and, not to give anything away, but he didn't end up being the first African-American to play.
No.
He was
by a technicality,
but he was the first to sign a contract, and even in signing that contract, you see that he still kind of got screwed over. But
we all know about bad weather screwing people over. But anyway, that is an explanation that you're going to have to watch the movie, everybody, to actually know what the heck we're talking about.
100%. And I love the way this film is wrapped in the beginning and the end, the way it's kind of bookended with this guy getting into a cab.
Yeah.
And just the way that's done. And it's one of these things where you start off, well, I'm going to tell you a story, and then he ends up with the story being told. And just that whole middle part, just the way it was crafted was just really nice. And it was nice. It was like sewn up with a nice bow, delivered and easy to digest. And you just walk away from that feeling like you learned something. You feel like you saw some great performances too. So kudos to Martin for knocking that out of the park. Now, one of the actors in this film, I was extremely excited to chat with, as you know, because we're both big fans of pop culture. We're both big fans of Stranger Things. We're fans of Robin Hood Men in Tights. We're fans of The Princess Bride. So the fact that we have Cary Elwes on the podcast is huge for both of us. I know that.
Oh yeah.
And all I kept thinking about when I was sitting across from him was like, this man just exudes kindness. He just exudes kindness, class, everything about him. He's just, when someone's just really well put together and they make you feel good. That's exactly how I felt as soon as I got on Zoom with him. And then I immediately felt horrendously ugly because this man.
I was going to say, you're making you feel good. Like, I don't know. There's this joke on Friends where Brad Pitt's on it and Chandler's like, hey man, he's like, oh, I don't think my self-esteem can handle anybody seeing us stand next to each other.
Yeah.
And, the same thing applies to here. I'm comfortable seeing Cary Elwes on a Comic-Con stage where I'm safely 20 feet away and nobody can make the facial comparison.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, yes, he's a very beautiful man. There's no doubt, but he's beautiful inside and out. And you can see that. And
beautiful soul,
really, truly. And everybody that met him when we had him at Comic-Con said the same thing. They just walked away going, "What a great experience! Like, what a nice guy." And it was nice because when he does his experience at Comic-Cons, he's roped off, like he's kind of curtained off. So you can't. That can be perceived as like, oh, he's arrogant. No, because he wants that to be an intimate experience that you have with him that not everyone's gawking at. And I get it now. Now after spending 10 minutes with him. He was just a really, really nice guy. So let's not, keep anyone in suspense anymore. A huge moment for us as nerds. And of course, one of the main actors in this film, Cary Elwes from Sweetwater, right here on the Rockman Power Hour. I hope all my stuff behind me, Cary.
I think it's fabulous, Jason. What a collection. Let me just lean in before we start and see what you've got there.
I've got a lot of art toys back there. I've got some.
That's very cool.
Some sports memorabilia there.
I love it.
Ali. Yeah. So this is where
Muhammad Ali. I'm going to Louisville tomorrow.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go to the museum. I got to go.
Nice.
I got the privilege of meeting Ali many, many years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, we're going to burn. We're going to burn our 10 minutes. Yeah, go for it. I want to hear it.
All right. So it was Rocky, I don't know, 4 or something like that, and it was Times Square at a sports bar. I can't remember the name of it. And I was invited, and I went. And there he was sitting with two huge bodyguards either side of him.
Yeah.
And they were so intimidating that no one approached him. And even some people who tried, these guys were like, hey, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought, I grew up idolizing this guy like all of us, and I thought, oh my God, I have to say hi. I have to. And so I started to walk forward, and these two men, literally the size of the Berlin Wall, came and went, no, and he saw me, and he went, no, it's okay. And he recognized me and let me come and take a picture with him. And I got to tell you, meeting him in person, he fulfilled all of your dreams. He was just as beautiful and lovely and personable and delightful and charismatic as you could possibly hope Muhammad to be. He was just all of the things and more. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, and it's funny because I work for some Comic-Cons in Canada. I'm a spokesperson for Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec, and Winnipeg.
Right on.
And you've been at our shows.
Love Canada, love Montreal.
And you've had that same effect on a lot of people that have met you. So, I imagine you learned that from your experience meeting your hero.
Yeah, it's one of those beautiful things. Thank you for saying that, by the way. It's one of those beautiful things in my profession in our profession, that we get to meet our heroes, and gosh, it's great when they live up to your hopes and dreams, isn't it?
And it sucks when they don't.
Well, we don't focus on those.
No, we don't. I want to talk to you about the movie. I got to see it yesterday. I got a really lovely chance to chat with Martin, who's just such a great guy, and he just exudes so much passion for the game of basketball. Was it him and his passion for this project that lured you in? Because I would imagine that would be, if I was an actor looking for some work or having stuff pitched at me, if I met him, I would be pretty much sold.
Well, I was sold on the script, sure, before I met him,
right.
Because it was such a beautiful story and one that I didn't know about. And it checked all the boxes for me that in terms of having social, cultural, and historical relevance. So and when I met him and he told me that he'd had this project for 28 years, I thought, my God, that's an incredible passion. I definitely have to be on board. That has to be a world record for a director,
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a visitor.
Hi, who's that?
It's my dog, June. She always comes.
Hi, June.
So it's, when I'm talking with him yesterday, and like you said, I didn't know anything about this story. And that, I think, is so hard nowadays with all the information that we get, and that, so much at our fingertips, to not know Sweetwater's story. And also, having been a huge Globetrotter fan when I was a kid,
Me too.
It was just so fun to learn something new and see the cultural significance of him being signed to the NBA.
Yeah, none of us on the cast, including Everett, who is wonderful in the movie, by the way, none of us knew about Sweetwater. And, I had the privilege of interviewing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar before I started the picture. And I told him I was working on it. He said, Cary, that's probably one of the more important films you'll ever make. And I said, why? He said, because I wouldn't exist without Sweetwater. And nor would Magic Johnson or Michael Jordan or Kobe or LeBron or any of these guys. We all stand on this man's shoulders. And so it occurred to me that he's revered among these giants and yet relatively unknown elsewhere. And that's another important reason why his story has to be told.
And I think, the fact that there's so many great actors involved with this project. I mean, you got yourself, you've got Jeremy Piven, who is just a firecracker. And then to have Richard Dreyfuss there, it's just, it was a real pleasure to watch. And it felt like everybody brought their A game.
Yeah. Anything other than your A game is not acceptable in our profession, is it?
Right.
Really? And so, and especially when you're telling a story that's irrelevant and important, you want to make sure you get it right. You only get one shot at it. Yeah. And we were fortunate in casting this wonderful young man, Everett Osborne, to play the role. I mean, he's not only terrific in it, but he's an incredible athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that combination of a guy who can not only act, but can play basketball on the level of being almost pro.
Yeah.
It was unheard of. And so we'd have no movie without,
Yeah, and there has to be something said about Everett. I mean, he just really, really brings this energy to the role, and immediately you're lured in. I mean, I don't know, it's something about his face, something about him.
Everything.
He has the it factor.
Yeah, he's got it. You're absolutely right.
It's funny to watch a movie like this. I'm 52. I've seen these kind of stories my whole life in a way that seems like something that, I have 2 kids. They would look at this and go, really, Dad? Like this ever mattered? Like, why would anybody ever care about somebody's color? But we're facing a lot of these same issues right now.
100%.
With rights, with people's rights that are being taken away in the US. So it's amazing how these stories always seem like, how could that have ever happened? But these stories are always continuing to evolve as we continue to evolve. And it's nice to see somebody be able to look back on this and go, wow, that was actually a thing. Like, can you imagine the NBA without black players? I mean, it makes no sense.
It's absurd. It makes no sense. And God bless the NBA for getting behind the project too. It's weird that we live in a time now where there are some states that are trying to ban African American studies. And, to me, it's a complete anathema. I mean, African American studies are American history. African American history is American. It's right there in the title.
Right.
And so, it's ironic that trying to ban books. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she said to me, Dad, it's so silly because none of us get our information from books today. It's all on our phones. And what are they going to do? Take our phones away?
Right.
So it's absurd, really.
Yeah.
But, these stories need to be told. They need to be told. We need to honor this man and make sure that we teach people. We're so fortunate to be in an industry that can both entertain and educate. And so, we need to,
And when you look at the character that you played, I mean, there were always people in history that did do that, and even Abe, the coach of the Trotters. I mean, there are people that had to always walk that line where they had to kind of appease the people that were still in that old world, but saw that there was a future, saw that there was a change, and that's always a tough place to be, because when you're firmly planted on one side, it's easier, but when you're straddling and you're still trying to force change, you're always in a tough position.
It's a very, very very interesting observation, Jason. You're absolutely right, because these guys were operating out of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were bound by archaic rules and regulations, and yet they understood how ridiculous they were in the end. And that, for Ned, he started out as a guy who was purely interested in the color green, not any other color. And then I think once he met Sweetwater, and Lapchick was an important part of changing his mind. But once he met him and realized this guy was serious about playing the game, he realized he needed to be on the right side of history.
Yeah, and I mean, he was a great player too. Let's not, when he I don't want to give anything away, but when he plays his first game, you clearly see that he's leaps and bounds above everybody on that court. Yeah. Lastly, I've got to ask you this, because I know we're going to probably have to wrap up soon, and I'm a big cigar fan. Are you a cigar fan, or was it a stretch? Was it a stretch for you to do that?
No, I picked that because Ned came up through sports as a sports reporter with Damon Runyon, and I grew up watching all of Guys and Dolls and things like that. So I wanted to give him that Runyon-esque flavor to him. Yeah,
right.
And I thought a cigar was the perfect thing for a promoter. And it kind of worked.
Did you enjoy it at all, or was it like you couldn't wait to just be done? Thank you so much for taking the time, and I just wanted to say, because I do have you on here, if Robin Hood Men in Tights, and I'm such a big Mel Brooks fan, and talk about a guy that got the idea of pushing the boundaries early on. I mean,
by making it look ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important that someone's able to see a movie like Blazing Saddles and realize the absurdity in it, and that Mel had this vision to be able to say, I'm going to put it right in your face to show you how stupid some of this stuff is.
Yeah, well, you could never make that picture today.
No, but it has cultural significance because it was just so
100%.
Thanks for taking the time. It's an absolute pleasure always chatting with you, and all the best.
Thank you. And you too. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't know the last name Irish was ever a last name ever. Nevertheless, an important owner of an NBA franchise in the 1950s. Yet here we are.
Yeah, well, it's a last name, and it's crazy because what I read was that James Caan originally was supposed to be in this film. He was Ned Irish, and that he had passed. So Cary Elwes stepped in. That's what I heard. That's rumor through the grapevine was that he was involved, and then he had to step back. But the other performance that needs to be definitely needs to be talked about is Kevin Pollak, who plays Abe Saperstein, the owner of the Harlem Globetrotters.
Okay, yeah,
he was great. He was great.
Yeah,
and the thing about the Globetrotters was that and the Globetrotters were and still are just amazing to see. I mean, if you've never, it's kind of, for me, it's like a rite of passage for every kid. Like you got to go see the Globetrotters once in your life. It's amazing what they can do. And the fact that they were going around like a traveling vaudeville show early on, just blowing people away on any stage they could. And that they've cemented that legacy, and but they're players that came out of the Globetrotters that went to the NBA. Do you know?
Yeah.
So, and you think of it now, and it's like all the hot dogging and the showboating and all that stuff that came into the league was born out of the Globetrotters.
That's actually really fascinating too, because I just take for granted that basketball is the way it is and has always been. And there was a time before that. And just to say, everybody, this is really not a mild spoiler, but like when he does start playing the game and he's kind of using his, Harlem Globetrotter style of playing. And because the referees have never seen moves like that before, they kept calling fouls. And it's almost frustrating because I am aware of the modern perception of basketball versus then, and I'm like, what do you mean that's not traveling? They do that all the time. And but when you're the first person to do something under that kind of spotlight, then you have a bunch of old school people very set in their ways scratching their heads being like, that's not how you play basketball. And I think that's important for the world to just say, that's not the way how you do it, because it's just like, add 50 years and let's not bury our heads in the sand about certain things, because it's you never know in 50 years when you're on the wrong side of history.
Yeah, that's just what ends up happening in anything. When you look at and it's funny because I bring that up. I can't remember if it was with Martin or was with Cary. I brought up how this story now seems like, well, of course that would have happened, but back then, it was a huge deal, and every generation deals with these changes and with things that, there's always somebody that's on the forefront pushing to have change made, and everyone looking at it and going, no, you're wrong. So it's just a great uplifting story. So I'm really, really grateful to have both of those gentlemen on with us today.
Sorry, could we just mention Jeremy Piven and how much he kicked ass?
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, we were supposed to have him on the podcast, but there was a scheduling issue. I was kind of bummed about that. It would have been really nice to have him, but yes, Jeremy Piven brings his A game all the time. He's just great. He's great.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that everybody committed to this. They all seem committed. Everyone that's there, no one seems like they're just there for the paycheck. Everyone is committed to the film, and it shows. So yeah, Jeremy Piven, I mean, God, he's Ari Gold forever. He's always going to be that guy. And
Lloyd.
I love
Ari Gold.
All right. So we will see you next time on the Rockman Power Hour. A big thanks to our sponsor, Heartbeat Hot Sauce. Definitely check them out at heartbeathotsauce.com and use our promo code Rockman20, and you will get 20% off your entire order. Also, thanks to our sponsors, Studio House Designs as well. Go check them out at studiohousedesigns.com. Thanks to AKG for helping us sound great on this podcast. And thanks to all of you for joining us on the journey. If you enjoy the podcast, please like, subscribe, hit that bell, and you will be alerted as when new episodes drop. And let us know in the comments what you like, what you dislike, what you might want to see on the podcast, who you might like us to speak to. We're always open to suggestions. And thanks to my co-host, Ryan Stick. Thank you to Julia Kajerski, our producer, and to all of you for joining us on this journey. And we'll see you next time on the Rockman Power Hour.